Hello there, my name is Mike. Welcome back to another Soulframe video. In this one, we're going to talk about Prelude 13 that just dropped yesterday. This was an absolutely massive update that shook up most of the core mechanics of the game. We're just going to jump straight into it with talking about the Virtues rework, which is the biggest system change that they made in Prelude 13, and what the Prelude itself is actually named after. The new system introduced something called Virtue Prisms that have predefined stat distributions into the different virtues, so you're not hitting the plus and minus buttons on your virtues anymore to assign points. You're just slapping on a Virtue Prism and rolling with it. They also changed how the abilities interact with the virtues. Each virtue will correspond to its color and increase the power of that ability. So your 1 is impacted by Courage, your 2 is impacted by Spirit, and your 3 will be impacted by your Grace virtue. The virtues also have a buff for your character depending on which ones you are prioritizing. The Courage virtue will increase your character's health considerably more than the others. Your Spirit virtue will reduce your ability cooldowns, and your Grace virtue will increase your finisher and stealth damage. Additionally, your virtues will greatly impact the weapons and armor that you can use and what will be effective for you in your current playstyle. Previously, it was just the weapons that would be affected by this, but they've rolled that system out to armors as well, and they've expanded the system itself, so it's a little bit more complicated to get into now. Basically, every weapon and armor has an attunement. You have to reach this attunement level with a certain virtue to be able to get your virtue bonuses for that piece of armor or weapon. Most armors and weapons have 2 virtues that add power to them, so you get a bonus for the more of that virtue you have stacked, which will be impacted by your talismans, your packed virtue distribution, as well as your prism. Your armor is further broken down by physical, magical, and stability damage. Each of these can be impacted differently and scales differently based on the number of pips for your different virtues that it has. Weapons were also shaken up pretty well with this update. Instead of weapons kind of randomly needing certain virtues to be made stronger, your weapons will now be classified into virtue classes, and that's the best way I could describe them. You've got long swords, sword and shield, great swords, and polearms all requiring courage attunements to activate their virtue bonuses and get extra damage. Your magic weapons will all require spirit, and your fly blades, short blades, and bows will all require grace. Just like with your armors, most of your weapons will also have split attunements, so you'll also get power from another attunement, and that attunement is kind of random based on the weapon. You don't get to determine what your secondary attunement is going to be. It's just part of the weapon, kind of the same way they were in the previous iteration of this system. But I think that's a pretty good summary of the changes to the virtue system that came in Prelude 13, so I'm going to offer a little bit of feedback on it now, starting with what I like about it. Equipping the prisms is probably my favorite part of the system, so you're not going back and forth with your plus and minus arrows. You just equip the prism that you want for whatever build you're going for, and you roll with it. The prisms that they're starting us out with are pretty balanced, I feel. Most of them cover any build that you would have been making anyway, so I don't think it's going to restrict build diversity in that way that I was kind of worried about in my coverage of their dev stream and the details that they were giving out about it beforehand. They also did a light rework of the packed skill trees, your packed arts, so that the nodes that you would have used to get bonus virtues from your packed are now all on their own and can be accessed from the starting node of your packed tree. That way you're not wasting your packed skill points on nodes that you don't necessarily care about just to be able to get those bonus virtues. This, in conjunction with the points that you'll be getting from whatever talismans you've got equipped, actually gives you a considerable amount of fine-tuning control over whatever playstyle that you're going for. Lastly, acquiring your prisms is completely deterministic. You know exactly what you need to do to get them. There's no RNG involved. You don't have to go kill a boss 500 times just to hope that you get the right prism. I think this is a good start for the system, but it's going to take a lot of fine-tuning, and I'm going to get into a few of my criticisms here in a second. Before that though, I want to make a quick disclaimer. First and foremost, I think Soulframe is a great game. It's got a ton of potential, and I cannot wait to see what they do with it in the future. Second, all of my criticisms are my own personal views on these things. You can agree with them, or you don't have to. That's completely up to you. I know this game isn't going to be for everybody, and I know that they can't design it for everybody. Lastly, my criticisms come from a place of love. I just want to see the game do better. I want to see them improve these systems that they've introduced, and I know that it is a work in progress, and everything won't come overnight. My feedback is based on about 5 hours of gameplay in Prelude 13 that I managed to get in last night, so I'm sure that some of my opinions on these systems might change as I play more with them and get to experience them in a little bit more depth. But let me stop rambling and we'll jump right into it. It was a little rough right from the get-go when I found out how you have to acquire your different prisms. I mentioned earlier that it is deterministic, so that is a positive, for sure. This is not an RNG system. The problem is that some of it is a major grind of a system. You get one prism that matches whatever pact you started your game with, and you also get your wild prisms if you bought any of the wild pacts. The rest of the prisms all come from the factions in the game. You get the 2 other starter prisms that are vaguely slanted toward one of the 3 virtues just by visiting the different faction leaders in their enclaves. You just run up, talk to them, and that's it, you've got it. I like this, and it gives you a good reason to go search out all of the different factions and talk to their leaders a little bit. The next set of prisms are the extreme prisms. These are dramatically slanted toward one of the 3 virtues, and they can be purchased for a single standing cost, which is good, at rank 2 of whatever your faction is. The final set of prisms are the hybrid virtue prisms, and these just mix and match the virtues on the prism so that you get an even distribution between several of the different virtues. And these are unlocked at rank 4 of your faction for 1 standing cost. This means that you have to reach rank 4 with every faction in the game just to get all of the prisms that are currently available. Locking this much of build experimentation behind this level of a grind is completely unreasonable to me, and I have no idea why they would think that this is a good idea. To drive this point home, let's say you joined a faction, and you want to try a hybrid build that comes from another faction. You have to reach rank 3 with whatever faction you're already a member of, if you haven't already, spend the 7,500 reputation to purchase a shimmer, craft the amulet of the other faction that you want to join that has the prism that you're after, go to that other faction's enclave and pledge yourself to them. Then do your Sparrow's Tales with the 16,000 rep daily limit up to rank 4 and purchase the prism that you want to try. All of this work and effort to get something that you might not actually end up liking. To Digital Extreme's credit, they did remove the cooldown on switching factions. You used to have to wait 7 days to switch factions again after you just switched, so you can jump between factions as much as you want if you've already got the amulets crafted. This helped me get all the prisms so that I could play with them immediately, but for somebody that doesn't have all of the factions maxed out already, I could see this being a major issue, even with the cooldown reduction on switching factions. My suggestion for fixing the acquisition of the prisms is to award the starter virtue prisms to all players regardless of the pack that they chose when they started playing the game. That way, players can immediately start tweaking their gameplay and playing with the playstyle that fits them the best. If that means you have to give them a weapon that goes along with that prism as well, then so be it, give them a weapon. I don't think limiting players' ability to experiment with their playstyle right off the bat is a very good game design decision anyway. The hybrid virtue prisms should be awarded the same way the starter ones are currently awarded, just by visiting all of the faction enclaves and talking to the faction leaders. Lastly, the extreme prisms should be awarded from the Omen Beast quests. Those are your main quests featuring the stag, the bear, and the wolf. This would go a long way in reducing the nonsense that it takes and the absolute crazy grind that it would take to get all of the prisms to be able to really genuinely experiment with your build and your playstyle and get a full experience of the game. Next on the chopping block are the passives that the virtues give you now. Courage is still hands down the strongest, and I think most people will probably be running pure courage builds with as much armor they can get on their character. You are incredibly squishy when not stacking courage, and when stacking courage, you are a completely immortal tank. I'm sure there are plenty of builds that are completely viable, but I think the easiest build that most people will gravitate toward is just stacking as much health and armor as they can, just so that they don't die whenever they get hit. Spirit's cooldown reduction feels okay, but it's nowhere near as strong as just surviving everything that hits you. If you're playing co-op as a backline support, I'm sure that you would probably want to stack Spirit so that you can cast your heals and utility abilities way more frequently. But for playing solo, I see absolutely no reason to stack Spirit unless you're just messing around. Lastly, Grace feels pretty much useless. As far as I can tell, you get some more damage on your finishers, your stealth attacks, and your stealth headshots, so before an enemy is alerted you can headshot them, and you get bonus damage on that for stacking your Grace. I haven't experimented with this a whole lot with things like Flint Smoke, but I would imagine that if you want to make a build completely around Grace, then you're pretty much restricted to a Flint Smoke build where you're performing finishers almost constantly. If you're using a bow with a Grace build, your first headshot gets a bonus and that is about it. The rest of the fight will be completely reliant on you being able to dodge because you're super squishy, and the pure damage coming from your bow and your rune. That rolls nicely into your weapons being completely dependent upon whatever prism you're using. They mentioned in their dev stream about this patch that they were removing the requirement to match your virtues to your weapons or armor, and that you could equip anything without any penalty to that weapon or armor. This is only a semantic truth because you don't get a big red arrow telling you that you're dealing no damage or getting no protection from a piece of armor unless you match the attunement values on that piece of equipment. But in reality, your damage or protection is about half of what it could be if you match that attunement. So realistically, you are debuffed if you are not matching your attunement with whatever armor and weapon you're using. Many of the better weapons require very high attunement in their specific virtue, which completely destroys any kind of build diversity or role mixing for any of your creations going forward. If you want to play a pure tank, you're just not allowed to use a bow or short blades or fly blades or any magic weapons. If you want to play a tankier archer, well then your abilities will recharge considerably slower and you will not be able to use any magic weapons for your secondary without being severely nerfed for it. This is because it's mandatory to equip a prism with enough grace to equip a bow and get the bonus damage off of having enough attunement for that bow. Even if you hate the number 3 ability on the pack that you're running, even if you never utilize the bonuses that you get off of having increased grace, like the sneak attack and finishers, you are pigeonholed into running that prism just because you want to run a bow. In the old system, you would have at least had the option to run a bow that aligned with the attunement that you were running the most of, so you'd be able to use Blitzel because you're running Courage. With how much they talk about wanting build variety and people to create their own builds and craft something cool and play it, this system, particularly with the weapons, just feels like it flies in the face of that. You're pigeonholed into using specific prisms just to play certain weapons, which means that every choice you make after your weapon is completely secondary and reliant upon that first choice. For instance, when I went to equip armor for the first time, when I logged in to play the new update, I picked my weapon, I picked my prism that would go with that weapon, and then I just picked the highest valued armor and slapped it on. Looking at the stats on the armors, as far as I can tell, there will never be a reason for me to take this armor off if I'm playing a courage-centered build. Likewise, it looks like it's going to be the same story with Grace and your Spirit builds, where you'll just have one set of armor that's best in slot for that virtue, and you never switch away from it. Obviously, this is just my first impressions, and once I delve into the system a little bit more, I'll get a better idea of how much build variety there actually is with armors, and how much you can switch and swap them to get a desired effect. But as far as I can tell right now, it looks like it's highest number wins, and just equip whatever that is. The last consideration that I would make for a build then is the pact. Since I already had to select a specific prism to get my weapon to work correctly, my pact will just get whatever virtue points that prism has. At the end of the day, these systems mesh together in a way that produces 5, 6, maybe 7 viable builds that are fun to play, but they've been pre-crafted and tweaked by Digital Extremes, and if you step outside of them, you're just not going to play as effectively. If that's what they're going for, then I think they've nailed it. But the way they talk, they would like a lot of build diversity. They would like you to be able to put together something that you can call your own and play with. And this system, in its current iteration, just isn't that. If I had to make some suggestions on how to fix this system and make it something that I personally would enjoy playing a little bit more, I would say the virtues need to be rebalanced so that they are equally effective and strong to play with. Courage is fine the way it is. It feels plenty strong. I think Spirit needs a considerable buff to the recharge speed of your skills so that I'm hammering buttons like this is World of Warcraft if I'm playing a Spirit-centered build. Grace is a difficult one to comment on because it feels so niche right now, where you're boosting your finisher damage and your stealth headshot damage without any consistent good way to get those into a fight. I think maybe increasing parry and dodge windows would be a good start. The higher your grace, the more room you have to parry and to dodge out of enemy attacks. Dramatically increase your damage on riposts and headshots. Reduce the chances of being detected by enemies, and maybe just give bonus smite chance the higher your grace is. It could also increase your dodge distance, how far you actually jump when you dodge or when you roll. And I don't know if this last suggestion would actually be a good idea or not, or if I just like the sound of it, but increasing your movement speed with higher grace would be pretty cool. I don't know how out of hand that could get if you ran a completely grace-centered build, if you just kind of be zipping all over the place. But I really do think it's worth suggesting and worth trying out. To fix the armor situation, really the only thing that I can think of to make it even slightly impactful is to give armors set effects. That way you might get a boost or a passive that will incentivize you to use a piece of armor that might not have the best numbers on it, but that would work perfectly for your build. As for the way the weapons interact with the new Prism system, I really don't have any idea how to fix it without any kind of major overhaul. All I know is that I really dislike the way it interacts with the system the way it is in its current state. And I think that's covered most of my feelings about the new virtues system. I know I'm not being the most positive about it, but it is a brand new system that they're implementing for the first time. So there are going to be some growing pains, and I fully expected that I would have plenty of issues with the system when they first put it in. But let's move away from the virtues and talk about some other changes that they made. They made a bunch of tweaks to the player controller, how it feels to run around, as well as the camera that follows the player around. The camera now feels a little bit more dynamic the way it follows the player and interacts during fights. I noticed that it'll zoom out quite a bit when there are groups of enemies or there are enemies behind my character so that I have a little bit better visualization of the fight that's going on. The camera does seem seriously bugged when it comes to jumping though, as it kind of focuses on an area of the screen where the character isn't, so your character ends up off to the side of the screen. I'm not sure what's up with this, but it feels absolutely terrible and I hope they fix it soon. Another change that they made that you can definitely feel is the rotation speed of the character. I don't know if I'm a big fan of this change. I kind of like the way the turning used to work, where it was a little bit slower and more intentional. But it could also be that the animation doesn't fully line up with the snappy, quick, jerky movements that you're making now with the new controller. It could also be that I'm just so used to the old system that this feels weird, and I'll just get used to it over time and it'll be perfectly fine. They also did some tweaks on something that is near and dear to my heart, and that's the melee combat, specifically the blocking and the parrying mechanics. Offering feedback on this system was the entire reason I even started making videos in the first place. And I am happy to say that they have dramatically improved your blocking and your parrying in the game. Melee feels 20 times better just after this update. Even if I have a ton of critiques and criticisms of the other things in this update, just this system alone makes it all worth it to me. Blocking and parrying both feel much more responsive. The parry window feels like you're actually parrying the attacks that are coming in, rather than just kind of guessing where in an animation you have to press the block button. I did notice that there is still a little bit of jank in the system. You will still get hit through block animation every once in a while, and some of your parries will feel like they should have gone, but you'll still get hit through them. It's not perfect, but it's a huge step in the right direction. Next, dodging feels a little bit jerky now with the way they've changed the player controller and how fast you turn. I don't know if you used to be able to dodge in the way that you can now, where you're sprinting back and forth in these dodge rolls, or if you could always do it and the camera movement, the way it works now, is just confusing it and making it look super spastic. Melee also seems to have picked up the problem that Magic has, where it targets random inanimate objects nearby the enemy that you're targeting. I don't remember the melee being quite this sticky, and it jumped out at me while I was doing some testing that my character is turning a full 90 degrees to hit something that isn't even on my screen. Along with targeting random inanimate objects, the character also kind of gets stuck targeting enemies more frequently. When you turn your camera away and try to move away from them, your character will remain locked on them, and whenever you attack or move, you'll move in relation to that enemy and strike toward them. This has always been an issue, but it seems like it's happening way more frequently now. Tied also to the melee and the new turn speed on the player controller, if you start a swing and then change the direction of your character, instead of making a smooth turn or completing the attack and then turning, your character will just kind of jerk in that direction and complete the swing in that direction. This has always been in the game in some form, but now it's just super noticeable with the increased turning speed on your character. Overall, I think the combat changes are a good thing and improve the game significantly. The movement changes I'm not sold on yet. Hopefully they get them tightened up a little bit, do some tweaking to them, get the animations to match them a little bit more closely so it doesn't look quite as unnatural. And the camera movement is fine, just fix the jumping issue. But along with all these changes and tweaks and system upset, they've also added some just straight up brand new content to the game that is absolutely awesome. Starting off, they added a new activity that's kind of like a siege. It's called the Organ. There are 3 of them dotted around the map as far as I can tell, and you go to an area with a big oil rig thing sticking out of the ground, and your goal is to get to the top of it and destroy it. These were a ton of fun, and the only gripe that I have about it is that it summons lasers while you're in the area fighting the enemies, and it summons them very frequently, and their hit area is pretty large, and they will one-shot you. They also added a new boss fight in the form of the Vadagar bear, which is the same bear that you fight for the Waste Bear quest, but just out in the open world, kind of the way the Vadagar stag works. I have not managed to find one of these bears yet, even though I've been going to different corrupted zones looking for one, so hopefully I get to fight one soon. Along with the new content, they added some new weapons. They added some dual blades called the Clivers. These are secondary dual blades, and they drop from that new organ activity along with the new armor called the Wazzard robes. The Clivers can also drop from the Reaper and Etheldred the Weaver bosses. They also added another magic secondary called Baskers Wrest that looks like it shoots fire. This one comes from the Kith of Kings faction. You can get the fragments of it from 3-star Kith of Kings Sparrow's Tales, or you can purchase it from the Kith of Kings Reputation shop. The last new weapon they added is called the Seathorn. It's a primary magic weapon, and the forum post says that it drops from 3-star Tales. Doesn't say any specific faction, so I assume any 3-star can drop it, but I have yet to get any fragments for it just yet. Another big feature that a lot of people were asking for was customization, and they actually rolled out quite a bit of it in this patch. You can change your face shape, your hair color, your hairstyle, your eye color, things like that. I'm not the biggest on customization, but I do like that you're able to recolor your packed arms now, so that is a huge improvement if you ask me. While running around in the northeast doing some Sparrow's Tales and just kind of looking around, I noticed that they changed up that portion of the map quite a bit. They added a couple varieties of enemies there, so now you can fight the little evil avocots, and you can also fight some spiders and stuff up that way. There's some more buildings and some more thorns and trees and that kind of stuff that makes the landscape up there feel just a little bit more alive. So I really like what they've done with it. It also looks like they've added more polearm weapon racks scattered around. I noticed some at a couple of gates, as well as some around the new organ activity. So hopefully that will go a long way in getting people more brass as they run around and explore, rather than it being something that you have to go actively farm if you want any large amount of it. I know that that's been a pain point for a lot of people in the Q&A chat. Lastly, they've updated how the world trees work. Unfortunately, that does not mean that you can teleport between them or get more fast travel charges. They've added a functionality that you start your Sparrow's Tales for an area at a world tree, rather than running around and looking for one and hoping that one spawns. You can also view other activities that are currently going on in that area around that world tree, such as the Collector, the Organ, or the Avocot Merchant. It definitely feels like there's more travel time while doing Tales to return to the world tree, but it is more consistent to get the Tales that you want to farm, and you can offset that travel time a little bit by running the Orangol Pact with its wolf form ability, and that should get us by until they actually add mounts to the game. It also shows the level range of the Sparrow's Tales in the World Tree interface, so you have a better idea of the difficulty of the Tales that you're about to do. And that's about all I've got for this one. I know it was a little bit longer than my other videos, and a little bit rambly. I didn't have quite as tight of an outline as I usually would for these videos. It was definitely more of a stream of consciousness rather than a structured commentary. But I hope you enjoyed it all the same. I would love to hear what you think down in the comments about any of the points that I brought up, or something that I might have missed that you run into in the game. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be dropping new content every week, and at least for the next few weeks, it'll be going over the Prism system in a little bit more detail, how it interacts with the packs and weapons and armor, and any tweaks and changes and hotfixes that Soulframe pushes out for it. If that interests you, I'd really appreciate a subscribe and a like on the video. See you in the next one.